Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to draw and paint this vintage propeller, and this is going to be a time lapse here today, but if you would like to paint this with me in real time live, you can join me over at Michaels for a free online class on August 15th. Go to michaels.com/classes to sign up or click the link in the video description. Now I'm sketching here right in my sketchbook with a number 2 pencil. I'm using a little flat compass here to get my circles down, but you could trace something if you want to. And then I'll just kind of scooch them a little bit to make the perspective right. Now feel free to draw this freehand yourself prior to class or download the pattern that is in the Michaels listing and transfer it to your watercolor paper before class. That's going to save some time because this class is only 1 hour long and we are going to be painting it together. Now as you can see, I love to draw and I encourage anyone who wants to learn to draw just to go for it and draw what they see. You're never too old and you don't need some innate natural talent to be able to draw. But I get it. If you don't have time, if it's not your thing and you just want to play with paint, that is totally fine too. Don't let anyone ever shame your game. You create how you want to create and know that I am rooting for you and I am behind you every step of the way. So we're going to start off by wetting the background here. Now we're going to use water-soluble graphite, and there's a couple different products that you could try, and if you don't have either of these but you have watercolors and you want to use that, by all means use what you have. But I'll be using the Derwent XL graphite blocks. Now this is a set of 6 water-soluble blocks that come in a big tin. And I like that because I like to use large brushes. You may find it more convenient to have the smaller set of the Derwent Graphite pan paints, which you can see there to the right on my screen. You can use either. It's a very similar product, if not the same. You get more colors with the Graphite pan paints, but you get, I think, physically more product with the big blocks, and it just depends on what your preference is. Neither is better or worse. It's whatever is more convenient for you. You'll have those colors in both sets, but I'll be using the large blocks just because I'm using a big brush and I find that a little handier. So using a 1-inch brush, I was able to fill that background with color. What I was originally planning on doing was kind of indicating the wings of the little plane with that kind of dark gray graphite, but I didn't like the look of it, and you'll see that I'll end up just kind of whooshing that out, just kind of mixing it in and blending it in and getting rid of it essentially. So you're actually watching me design this project for Michaels. So it's kind of fun. I always film it when I'm designing it because when I look back, I always find ways that were redundant or that would save time. And I also think it's good for you to see that not everything's a winner right off the bat. You got to rework things, you got to alter things, and that's a great thing about art. You can do that. Now, one of the neat things about water-soluble graphite is that it's erasable. So I went in with an electric eraser and just kind of pulled some highlights out of the clouds. They also act like watercolors, so you could go in with a damp brush and you could scrub out some clouds and lift them off, or lift them off when they're wet. So you kind of get a very versatile product that will work like both graphite and like watercolor, and it's just a lot of fun. And I also like that these colors granulate a bit, so if you've loved the look of the granulating watercolors but maybe they're not in your budget, these may be a little more budget friendly for you, or maybe you even have some of this in your stash from other projects and you have a new way to use it. So I'm always a big fan of using what you have, or if you're going to add to your stash, that you add a product that is truly different and versatile and will make your other products more valuable. So kind of keep that in mind. So you can see I'm using these blocks like a watercolor palette. I didn't pick up and draw with them, although you certainly can. You could color in an area with them, but I'm more comfortable and familiar with watercolors, so just using my brush to pick them up works the best for me. I am using a number 8 round here, and both of the brushes I used are from my signature set with Craft Ammo, but you can use whatever brand you have. And now I'm actually taking a Derwent Graphite pencil and drawing in some details. And you can do that with any sort of water-soluble graphite pencil or any watercolor pencil, as long as it's in a color that you want. So think of that versatility when you're adding to your stash. Will this be redundant? Is this just going to be the same as something I already have? Or is this something that's new that's going to give me a new texture or flavor or look into the work that I'm creating? Now, one thing that I really like about the water-soluble graphite is that it's not as flowy as traditional watercolors, so I can actually go right up to an area that's still a little damp and not get too much of a rough or feathered edge. It's a heavier paint, and that's why it granulates. It kind of, rather than dissolving in the water, it actually kind of just settles out of the water, and that's why you get that effect. And of course, if you really want to push that granulation effect, what you want to do is have plenty of water. Maybe pre-wet an area and then add lots of the pigment in there. You can see the granulation in the wing there. The more you layer over it and the more you fuss with it, the less you're going to get that granulated effect, because you're going to keep smoothing it out and making the wash more uniform. So just kind of a tip there in case you have some granulating products and for whatever reason you're like, these are not granulating for me. It could be the paper, or it could be the fact that you're just overworking it, or you're not using enough water. So just some things to keep in mind. And that's, I think, what's so exciting about watercolor and water-soluble media, is that you can paint with it for 100 years and it will still surprise you, and you'll still find new things to be excited about. At least I am anyway. And I've been doing watercolor since I was 7. I had watercolor lessons when I was 7. So I do have a head start, and I do want to mention that because I don't think it's fair to compare if you're just getting into it. And yeah, I have confidence with it because I've been doing it for so long, and I just absolutely love it. Now here I'm using the electric eraser again to bring in some highlights. Now you can use a regular eraser with an eraser shield. That's what that little metal thing is. And it is a really handy device to, especially if you like to draw shiny things. It works really great with dry pencils, colored pencils, graphite, charcoal, that sort of thing. It's a nice, versatile tool, and it will last you a long time, as long as you don't bend it or anything, as long as you take care of it. That's the way, really, with most of our products. If we take care of them, they will last us. And now I'm using an eraser to just pull out some details in the dark shadow areas. Now, of course, you could do that with an opaque media. You could go in there with like some pastel or some colored pencil. We will use some pastel pencils here to bring out some detail and some shadows. Now, there's a few different ways to sharpen your pastel pencils. Derwent is coming out with a brand new pastel pencil sharpener, which I'm very excited about, because pastel pencils do dull sharpeners very quickly. Pastel pencils can be finicky. They're so soft and they like to break. The way that I've been sharpening my pastel pencils is probably kind of silly sounding, but I've been using my husband's bench sander, and I just took the shot back up to the outfeed of it, and I turned that on, and I just sharpen my pencils on that sanding machine. And then when I need to repoint it, I'll use just a little sandpaper stump that I have that will sharpen them. But I just otherwise I'll use a knife in general, because I find that in sharpeners I break my pastel pencils so easily, and it's so frustrating. So the sander, I know it's a little bit out there, but it works really well if you happen to have a bench sander, electric bench sander in your home. And, I clean the belt after I'm done with it, so my husband doesn't end up with colorful woodworking projects. I just take one of those big rubber pieces from the Harbor Freight. They're called, I think, sander cleaners, and I just basically run it with that over it and clean it up that way. But I did need to get some deeper, darker dark, so I'm using this black pastel pencil. If you don't have pastel pencils, if you have like some neutral charcoal, like Conte crayons or something like that, that will work fine. Basically I'm working with neutrals. I'm working with black, white, gray. I did have like a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of brown. So, if you have pastel pencils or charcoal pencils or tinted charcoal, another wonderful Derwent product, those will all work really well for this final layer. We're basically just adjusting our values. And then for the super, super bright shinies, I am using a white gel pen. And this one's by Uniball Signo. It's the Broad Gel Impact Gel Pen. And I find that to be my most opaque one. And even though the graphite has a little bit of a sheen, it can cut down on the contrast of your highlights, I think it still gives you that really nice vintage flair. And I feel like just the water-soluble graphite is just so perfect for the subject matter. It's kind of old metal, and at first I thought I was going to try to put this marking on the blade, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good. And then so I erased it, but then I ended up taking out too much, and I thought, well, let's give it another try. And I'm like, no, this isn't where it's at. Then I thought, it would be a good idea. I could actually sign my name there with that white gel pen. So I decided I would repaint the blade in it. See, this is very forgivable, very forgiving media. And I thought, while I'm at it, I'm going to smooth out some of my pastel pencil marks with the wet brush, because pastels are water soluble. Any of those chalk pastels are also going to be, or charcoal are going to be water soluble, just the nature of the beast. And then I'm just giving it a quick dry, because anytime you're going to go back into your artwork with any sort of pen, you want it to be bone dry, or you will ruin the pen. I don't know what happens. You use a micron, you use a paint pen, a gel pen, anything over damp paper, and it's toast. I don't know what happens, but you want it fully dry. And that worked out pretty well. And yeah, that's how we finished it. Now I will tape a little piece of tracing paper in my sketchbook so I don't transfer that onto the facing page, because water-soluble graphite can rub off onto the facing page, so you want something in there to protect it. Or you can matte and frame it under glass like you would any work on paper. But I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you'll join me for the free class on August 15th over at michaels.com/classes. It's going to be a Zoom class, and as soon as you sign up, they will send you emails on how you'll get into class with information. It's very easy, very beginner friendly, and I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.